A pregnant woman stands alone in a courthouse hallway, minutes away from fighting for custody of her unborn child. She does not see the woman in red approaching from behind. She does not see the hands reaching toward her back. And she definitely does not expect her own husband to walk past her broken body to comfort the mistress who just pushed her down 7 marble steps. But here is what the mistress did not know. The pregnant wife has a brother, and he is the kind of lawyer who destroys lies for a living.
Win this
What
lawsuit,
happens
and I
next
am
will
not
leave you speechless.
afraid of anything.
Stay until the end because the twist is worth every second. If you love stories where karma wins, hit subscribe and let us begin. The marble floor rushed toward Claire Harrison's face in a blur of white and gray.
We demand a
Time
mistrial.
stretched into something grueling and slow as her body tumbled backward down the courthouse steps, her arms wrapped instinctively around her swollen belly. 8 months of hope, 8 months of feeling her daughter kick and turn inside her, 8 months of whispered promises and midnight conversations with the life growing beneath her heart. All of it suspended in the 2 seconds it took to fall. Her shoulder hit first. The impact sent a shockwave of pain radiating through her entire right side. Then her hip struck the edge of the second step, and she heard herself cry out in a voice she barely recognized. Her teeth cracked together so hard she tasted copper flooding across her tongue. Paperwork scattered around her like frightened birds taking flight. Her gray shawl caught on the brass railing and ripped away from her neck with a sound like tearing flesh. When her body finally stopped moving, Claire lay crumpled at the bottom of 7 marble steps. Her vision swam with dark spots and strange lights. Her lungs refused to fill properly, each breath catching somewhere in her chest like a trapped animal. Above her, through the haze of shock and terror, she saw the woman in the red dress standing at the top of the staircase with her hands still extended. Vanessa Cole was smiling, not a triumphant smile, something worse, a satisfied smile, the smile of someone who had accomplished exactly what she intended. The courthouse hallway erupted into chaos around Claire's broken form. Someone screamed, a woman's voice, high and piercing, cutting through the institutional hum of the building. Footsteps pounded in every direction as people rushed toward the scene or backed away in horror. A man shouted for security, his voice echoing off the marble walls and high ceilings. But Claire heard none of it clearly. The sounds reached her as if traveling through deep water, muffled and strange. The only sound that mattered was the frantic drumming of her own heart as she pressed her palm against her stomach and whispered through cracked and bleeding lips, "Please, please be okay. Move for me, baby. Please move. Show me you are still there." For 3 agonizing seconds that stretched on into eternity, she felt nothing. Her daughter was still inside her, terrifyingly still. Claire's throat constricted with a bump she could not release. Then her daughter shifted, a small flutter against her palm, a tiny kick, weaker than usual but unmistakably alive, a response to her mother's terror. Claire sobbed with relief and agony at the same time, tears streaming down her face to mix with the blood from her split lip. Then she heard his voice, her husband's voice, the voice she had loved once, before she learned what kind of man owned it. Derek Harrison pushed through the gathering crowd with the confidence of a man who owned every room he entered. His charcoal suit was perfectly pressed. His dark hair was precisely styled. His blue eyes swept across the scene with the calculating assessment of someone evaluating a business opportunity rather than a crisis. Claire lifted her head, expecting him to rush to her side, expecting some fragment of the man she had married 5 years ago to surface in this moment of crisis, expecting the father of her unborn child to show some sliver of concern for the life they had created together. Instead, Derek walked directly past her crumpled form without even glancing down. He climbed the steps toward Vanessa with quick, purposeful strides. "Are you okay?" Derek pulled his mistress into a protective embrace while his pregnant wife bled on the floor below them. His hands moved across Vanessa's shoulders, checking for injuries that did not exist. "She did not hurt you, did she? Tell me what happened." Claire's mind struggled to process what she was seeing. Her husband, the father of her child, the man who had promised to love and protect her until death parted them, comforting the woman who had just tried to kill her, comforting the woman who might have killed their daughter. Someone in the crowd shouted at him, a man's voice, rough with outrage. "Your wife is hurt. She is pregnant. What the hell are you doing?" Derek turned with the practiced ease of a man who had spent years manipulating every situation to his advantage. His face arranged itself into an expression of weary concern, the kind of look a patient parent might give when explaining something obvious to a slow child. His voice carried across the hallway with perfect projection. She is always doing this, making scenes, drawing attention to herself. She has been unstable for months. The pregnancy has made her worse. She probably tripped on purpose to make Vanessa look bad. He shook his head with theatrical sadness. I have been dealing with this kind of behavior for years. The lie landed like a second assault. Claire tried to speak, tried to protest, tried to scream the truth at the crowd of strangers surrounding her, but her voice came out as nothing more than a wheeze, a pathetic sound that convinced no one of anything. A security officer knelt beside her, his face professionally concerned. Ma'am, do not move. Medical team is on the way. Can you tell me where you are hurt? Claire could not answer. She stared up at the crowd of the strangers who had gathered around her fall. Dozens of faces, some horrified by what they had witnessed, some curious about the drama unfolding before them, many holding phones, recording everything with the casual documentation of modern life. Her humiliation, her pain, her husband's betrayal, all of it captured in high definition for strangers to watch and judge. Her gaze drifted back to Derek and Vanessa at the top of the stairs. Vanessa was whispering something in Derek's ear, her red lips moving against his cheek with intimate familiarity. He nodded and pulled out his own phone, his thumb already moving across the screen. Claire understood then, with a clarity that cut through her physical pain like a blade, that this was not random. This was not jealousy boiling over in an uncontrolled moment. This was not a crime of passion. This was planned, calculated, executed with precision, and whatever came next would be planned too. Derek was already building his narrative, already texting someone, already alerting his lawyers or his publicist or whoever helped him manage the truth into shapes that served his purposes. She forced her voice to work, pushing the words out through sheer determination. My baby. Someone please help my baby. The words carried across the marble hallway like a prayer and a plea combined. Several people moved closer, their expressions shifting from curiosity to compassion. A woman in a green jacket knelt beside the security officer and took Claire's hand in both of hers. Her grip was warm and steady. Help is coming, sweetheart. The woman's voice was gentle but firm. Just breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Just keep breathing. Your baby needs you to stay calm. But Claire could not take her eyes off her husband, off the way he looked at Vanessa with concern while his own wife lay broken below him, off the way his posture had shifted into protective mode, shielding his mistress from the accusing stares of witnesses, off the way his thumb was still moving across his phone screen, building whatever story would protect him from the consequences of this moment. Claire Harrison had spent 5 years making excuses for Derek. 5 years believing that love could fix anything if she just tried hard enough. 5 years telling herself that his coldness was stress, his cruelty was pressure, his distance was temporary. 5 years shrinking herself to fit into the life he demanded, becoming smaller and quieter and more invisible with each passing month. Now, in lying at the bottom of those courthouse steps with her daughter's life uncertain and her husband's betrayal complete, she finally understood the truth she had been running from. She had never been his wife. Not really. She had only ever been his victim, his asset, his possession, something to be used and controlled and eventually discarded when she no longer served his purposes. And if she survived this day, she would never be anyone's victim again. 27 minutes earlier, Claire Harrison stood in the kitchen of the house she had shared with Derek for 4 years. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of their colonial home in the affluent suburbs, catching the dust motes that drifted through the air like tiny ghosts. The kitchen was magazine perfect. All granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and carefully curated decorative touches that looked beautiful but felt cold and feminine. She was packing documents into her leather bag for the custody hearing. Financial statements that her accountant had prepared. Character references from friends and former colleagues. A letter from her obstetrician confirming that her pregnancy was healthy and progressing normally. That she was mentally and physically fit to parent. A folder of text messages she had saved, documenting Derek's cruelty in his own words. Her hands trembled as she organized the papers, shuffling them into neat stacks that her shaking fingers immediately disordered. Today was supposed to be the beginning of the end, the first step toward freedom. toward a life where she could raise her daughter without walking on eggshells, without flinching at the sound of Derek's car in the driveway, without spending every moment trying to predict his moods and adjust her behavior accordingly. A credit card statement caught her eye as she sorted through the mail pile on the counter. She did not recognize it. The account number was unfamiliar, and the billing address listed a location she had never heard of. Luxury Tower Condominiums, Unit 2317. Claire scanned the charges with growing confusion. $47,000 over the past 3 months. Furniture purchases from high-end retailers, electronics from exclusive boutiques, something called Elite Interior Design Services, monthly payments to a property management company. Her stomach tightened into a cold knot. She photographed the statement with her phone, making sure to capture every detail. Then she slipped the original into her bag alongside her other documents. One more piece of evidence. One more fragment of the truth Derek had been hiding behind his charming smile and expensive suits. As she walked toward the front door, Claire paused at the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at her looked tired. Dark circles shadowed her green eyes. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail that made her look younger and more vulnerable than she felt. A navy maternity dress hung from her shoulders, chosen specifically because it was professional and modest. She wanted the judge to see a responsible mother, a stable woman, not the hysterical drama queen Derek had been painting her as for months. She had dressed this way on purpose, had practiced her testimony in front of this same mirror, had rehearsed remaining calm when Derek's lawyer attacked her character, had prepared herself for every scenario she could imagine. But standing here now, 8 months pregnant and terrified of the day ahead, she felt utterly unprepared. Claire pressed her hand against her belly, feeling the warmth of her daughter beneath her palm. "We are going to be okay." She whispered the words like a prayer. "Whatever happens today, we will figure it out together. I promise you. I will protect you no matter what." Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her brother Marcus. "Stuck in traffic. Accident on the highway. Should be there in 20 minutes. You okay?" Claire typed back quickly, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. "I am fine. See you soon." She was not fine. She was terrified. Her heart was racing. Her palms were sweating despite the air conditioning. Her stomach churned with an anxiety that bordered on panic. But admitting that felt like inviting disaster. She needed to be strong today. Strong for herself. Strong for her daughter. Strong enough to face the man who had systematically dismantled her confidence over 5 years of marriage. The courthouse parking garage was half full when Claire arrived. She found a spot near the elevator and sat in her car for several minutes. Gathering her courage, her hands would not stop shaking. Her heart raced with an anxiety that made her chest tight. She watched other people walking toward the elevators, all of them moving with purpose and confidence while she sat frozen behind her steering wheel. Deep breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, just like the therapist taught you. She closed her eyes and remembered the day she had told Derek about the pregnancy. They had been sitting in the living room of their beautiful, empty house. She had been so nervous, so hopeful, so certain that this news would bring them closer together. His face had gone blank. Not happy, not upset, not surprised, just empty. Like she had told him the weather forecast instead of the most important news of their lives. He had nodded once, said he needed to think, and left the room. She had sat alone on the couch for 2 hours, waiting for him to come back, waiting for the daughter she had expected to see. That should have been her warning. That should have been the moment she understood what kind of man she had married. But Claire had spent years perfecting the art of explaining away Derek's coldness. He was stressed about work. He was worried about finances. He would come around once the baby was born. He just needed time to process. He showed love differently than other people. She just needed to be more patient, more understanding, more accommodating. The excuses sounded hollow now. Paper-thin shields she had built around a truth she had not been ready to face. Claire opened her eyes and stepped out of the car. The concrete garage was cool and dim, and her heels echoed against the floor as she walked toward the elevator. Each step felt like a small act of courage. The courthouse lobby was crowded with the usual mix of anxious families and hurried attorneys. Claire moved through the security checkpoint, placing her bag on the conveyor belt and stepping through the metal detector with practiced ease. She had been here before, too many times over the past 6 months. fighting for the right to leave a marriage that had become a prison. She made her way toward the elevators, her heels clicking against the marble floor in a rhythm that felt almost confident. She was going to be fine. She was going to tell the truth. The judge would see through Derek's lies. Her brother would be here soon. Everything was going to be okay. Then she saw them. Derek and Vanessa stood near the coffee kiosk in the main atrium, holding paper cups and leaning close together. They were laughing about something. Vanessa's hand rested on Derek's arm with an intimacy that made Claire's throat constrict. Her red nails looked like drops of blood against his charcoal sleeve. Claire knew about Vanessa, had known for almost 8 months now, had found the texts on Derek's phone when he left it unlocked one careless evening, had discovered the hotel receipts hidden in his briefcase, had smelled the perfume on his shirts that did not match anything she owned, had watched him deny everything with such conviction that she almost believed him despite the evidence in her hands. But seeing them together in public, seeing Derek smile at another woman with a warmth he had not shown Claire in years, still felt like a knife sliding between her ribs, still felt like a betrayal fresh and raw and devastating. Vanessa spotted her first. The laughter died on her red lips. Her eyes narrowed with something that looked almost like anticipation, like hunger, like she had been waiting for this moment. Claire forced herself to keep walking. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cower. She would not hide in a corner and wait for her brother to arrive. She would not let them see how much their presence hurt her. She was a woman about to fight for custody of her child. She would walk into that courthouse with dignity. Behind her, Claire heard the sharp click of designer heels beginning to follow. The paramedics arrived within 4 minutes of the fall. Claire watched them approach through a haze of pain and fear, their dark uniforms cutting through the crowd of onlookers like ships through fog. 2 men knelt beside her with practiced efficiency, their movements smooth and professional. "Ma'am, I need you to stay still." The older paramedic had kind eyes and a calm voice that seemed designed to soothe frightened patients. "Can you tell me your name?" "Claire Harrison." She forced the words out through her rattled breathing, each syllable a small victory. "I am 8 months pregnant. Please check my baby. Please make sure she is okay." The younger paramedic placed a portable monitor against her belly while his partner checked her pupils and blood pressure. The cold gel made her flinch, but she held perfectly still, afraid that any movement might harm the life inside her. The crowd around them had grown larger. Security officers were creating a perimeter, pushing back the curious onlookers and their recording phones. Someone was questioning Vanessa at the top of the stairs, their voice carrying across the marble hallway. Claire strained to hear what Vanessa was saying. She grabbed my arm. Vanessa's voice was pitched higher than usual, trembling with manufactured distress. She came at me first. She was screaming at me, calling me horrible names. I was just defending myself. I barely touched her. The lie was so blatant, so completely divorced from reality, that several witnesses immediately objected. A man in a gray suit stepped forward with his phone raised, his face flushed with outrage. I recorded everything. His voice carried clearly across the hallway. She pushed her, hard, with both hands. The pregnant woman did not say a word, did not even raise her voice. This woman just walked up behind her and shoved her down the stairs. Derek's voice cut through the noise like a blade, smooth and confident and utterly without conscience. "My wife has a history of emotional instability. She has been seeing a therapist for months. This is exactly the kind of dramatic episode her doctor warned me about. She creates scenes wherever she goes. It is a pattern." Claire felt something inside her crack open. Not her body, though every inch of her ached. Something deeper. Something she had been protecting for years. The last fragile hope that Derek might still care about her, might still have some remnant of the man she thought she married, shattered against his words like glass against stone. The paramedic met her eyes, his expression professionally neutral, but his gaze kind. "Your baby's heartbeat is showing some irregularity. We need to transport you to the hospital for a full assessment and monitoring. Is there someone we should call?" "My brother?" Claire's voice trembled despite her efforts to control it. "Marcus Harrison. He is on his way here. He should be arriving any minute." As if summoned by his name, Marcus pushed through the crowd at that exact moment. His tall frame and serious demeanor cut a path through the onlookers like a ship through water. He was wearing his courtroom suit, charcoal gray and perfectly tailored, his sandy brown hair slightly disheveled from hurrying. When he saw Claire on the stretcher, his face went pale. For one moment, he looked like the protective older brother who had taught her to ride a bike, who had threatened every boy who broke her heart, who had held her hand at their parents' funeral. Then his expression changed. The concern hardened into something cold and dangerous, something professional. Marcus Harrison was one of the best litigation attorneys in the state. He had built his reputation on methodical destruction of lies, on finding the truth hidden beneath layers of deception and manipulation. He approached every case like a chess game, anticipating moves, preparing responses, never letting emotion override strategy. But seeing his pregnant sister bleeding on a courthouse floor ignited something primal beneath his professional composure, something ancient and protective and utterly merciless. He walked toward Derek with measured steps, each footfall deliberate and controlled. His voice was quiet enough that only those nearby could hear, but the threat in it was unmistakable. What happened? Derek did not flinch. His expression remained perfectly composed, perfectly sympathetic, perfectly false. She fell. You know how she is, Marcus. She has been unstable for months. Pregnancy hormones combined with the stress of the divorce. She trips over her own feet. Her therapist can confirm that she has been struggling. Marcus turned to the crowd, his courtroom voice carrying easily across the hallway. Did anyone see what actually happened here? Multiple voices responded at once, overlapping in their eagerness to tell the truth. The woman in red pushed her. She shoved her down the stairs with both hands. It was deliberate. There was no provocation. I have it on video. I saw the whole thing. Marcus nodded slowly, filing away every witness, every statement, every piece of evidence. He looked back at Derek with an expression that promised reckoning. We will discuss this more. Soon. In the ambulance. Claire finally allowed herself to cry. The paramedic continued monitoring her baby's heartbeat while his partner started an IV line for fluids. The siren wailed overhead as they navigated through traffic. But inside the vehicle, there was only the steady beep of monitors and the sound of Claire's quiet sobs. Her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Against her better judgment, against every instinct telling her to focus on her baby, she answered, Mrs. Harrison. This is Gerald Patterson from Patterson Financial Management. I need to speak with you about some urgent irregularities in your trust fund accounts. Claire's blood ran cold. What irregularities? There have been significant unauthorized transfers over the past 2 years. The man's voice was professionally concerned, but the words hit her like physical blows. Your balance has dropped from $2.3 million to approximately $400,000. The transfers were authorized with credentials linked to your husband's financial accounts. We only discovered the discrepancy during a routine audit this morning. The ambulance walls seemed to close in around her. Claire struggled to breathe, struggled to process what she was hearing. 2 years. Derek had been stealing from her for 2 years. Nearly $2 million. Her grandmother's legacy. The money that was supposed to provide for her daughter's future. Mrs. Harrison, are you still there? Yes. Claire's voice came out as a whisper, barely audible above the ambulance noise. I need you to freeze everything. Right now. Nothing else goes out without my direct authorization. Do you understand? Not a single penny moves without my explicit approval. She ended the call and stared at the ceiling of the ambulance. Her body was broken. Her baby was in danger. Her husband had stolen her future. The man she had trusted with everything had been systematically destroying her for years. And the worst part was that she had let him, had trusted him completely, had believed his explanations about investments in real estate opportunities, had signed documents without reading them because he told her everything was fine, had handed over her financial security because she thought marriage meant partnership. Claire Harrison had been a fool, a naive, trusting, desperately hopeful fool. But fools could learn, and she was learning very quickly. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of the fetal monitor. Claire lay in the bed with her hand resting on her belly, counting every movement, every flutter, every kick, each sign that her daughter was still fighting, still alive, still there. Dr. Robert Matthews entered with a tablet in his hand and a cautious expression on his weathered face. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray temples and kind eyes that had probably delivered thousands of difficult diagnoses over his career. His white coat was slightly wrinkled, suggesting he had been on shift for many hours. The baby's heartbeat has stabilized. He pulled a chair beside her bed and sat down, his posture communicating that he intended to give her his full attention. The fall caused some stress, and we saw some irregularities initially that concerned us. But your quick thinking and protecting your abdomen during the fall likely prevented serious injury. Your instincts saved your daughter. Claire exhaled, releasing tension she had been holding for hours. Thank God. Dr. Matthews continued, his tone measured and professional. However, I need to document this incident thoroughly for your medical records. Hospital policy requires me to ask some questions. Do you feel safe going home to your current and living situation? Claire laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even her. The laugh scraped against her throat and emerged as something between a coo and a bark. I have not felt safe in that house for over a year, maybe longer. I just did not want to admit it. Before the doctor could respond, Marcus entered the room. He had changed out of his courtroom suit into more casual clothes, but his face still carried the controlled intensity that Claire recognized from years of watching him work. I have news. He pulled a second chair close to her bed and lowered his voice, even though they were alone. The security footage from the courthouse clearly shows Vanessa pushing you. No ambiguity, no room for interpretation. Her hands are extended, making contact with your back, and you fall immediately. I have filed for an emergency protective order against both of them. Claire felt something loosen in her chest. A knot of tension she had been carrying for months, maybe years, began to unravel. Her eyes filled with tears that were not entirely from pain. Marcus continued, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who knew his craft. Judge Patricia Winters reviewed the footage personally. She was not pleased by what she saw. The order was granted 30 minutes ago. Derek cannot come within 500 feet of you. If he violates it, he will be arrested immediately. No warnings, no second chances. Tears streamed down Claire's face. She had not allowed herself to hope for months. Hope felt dangerous when you were married to someone like Derek. Hope meant vulnerability. Hope meant disappointment. Hope meant having something to lose. But now, with her brother beside her and legal protection in place, she let herself imagine a future without fear. Let herself picture raising her daughter in a home where no one walked on eggshells. Let herself dream of safety. That hope lasted exactly 4 hours. Marcus was reviewing documents in the corner of the room when his phone buzzed. He read the message, and his expression shifted from calm to furious in the space of a heartbeat. What is it? Claire pushed herself upright despite the soreness in her body, ignoring the protest of her bruised muscles. Derek's lawyer filed an emergency motion. Marcus's jaw tightened, the muscles in his face visibly clenching. He is claiming you verbally assaulted Vanessa before the push, that Vanessa acted in reasonable self-defense against your aggression. He produced a witness statement from a courthouse employee who claims to have seen the entire interaction. That is a lie. Claire's voice rose with indignation, her hands gripping the hospital sheets. I never said a word to her. Not one word. She approached me. She followed me. I was trying to walk away. I know. Marcus held up his hand, his expression grim but controlled. But the judge has to consider the motion according to procedure. The protective order is suspended pending investigation. Claire felt the ground crumble beneath her. The safety she had allowed herself to believe in vanished like smoke in a strong wind. The hope she had nurtured for 4 brief hours shattered into pieces too small to gather. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have stayed quiet. Now I will take everything, including the baby. She showed the message to Marcus. His face hardened into stone, every trace of brotherly warmth replaced by cold fury. He is using a burner phone. His voice was tight with controlled anger. We cannot prove it is him directly without a warrant. But this is intimidation. This is witness tampering. This is exactly the kind of behavior that will destroy him in court if we can document it properly. Claire stared at the message, the cruelty of it, the calculation, the casual confidence that he could threaten her without consequences. It was so perfectly Derek, so perfectly representative of the man behind the charming mask. Then something shifted in her mind, a gear clicking into place, a decision forming. I want the complete security footage from the courthouse. She met her brother's eyes with a determination that surprised them both. Not just the moment of the push, everything from the moment I entered the building until the moment the ambulance left. I want to see when Vanessa started following me. I want to see Derek's face when he watched me fall. I want to see every text he sent while I was lying on that floor. Marcus nodded slowly, a new respect dawning in his eyes. You are thinking like a lawyer. No. Claire's voice was steady despite the tears still drying on her cheeks. I am thinking like a mother who will do anything to protect her child. 3 days after the fall, Claire sat in her hospital bed scrolling through news articles on her phone. Each headline felt like another wound, another blow landing on already bruised flesh. Prominent developer's wife causes scene at courthouse. Sources close to Harrison family describe wife as emotionally unstable. Custody battle turns ugly as pregnant woman, allegedly attacks husband's employee. The narrative had been completely inverted. Derek's public relations team had worked overtime, spinning a web of lies so intricate and detailed that anyone reading the articles would believe Claire was the villain. Anonymous sources described her history of emotional outbursts that had never happened. A statement from Derek expressed deep concern for his unborn child's welfare, given the mother's erratic behavior and mental health struggles. Nurse Helen Crawford entered with fresh water and a sympathetic expression. She was a heavy-set woman in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that had seen every kind of suffering a hospital could contain. She moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had spent decades caring for people at their most vulnerable. You are reading those articles again. She set the water pitcher on the side table with a soft click. That is not good for your blood pressure. The monitor already showed a spike when you picked up your phone. Claire lowered her phone, her hands trembling slightly. How did he do this so fast? How did he make everyone believe I am the monster? 3 days. It has only been 3 days. Nurse Crawford sat on the edge of the bed, her weight settling with comfortable familiarity. Money, she said simply, her voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. Men like him, they think they can buy reality itself, rewrite the story so many times that people forget what actually happened. They hire the best publicists, the best lawyers, the best spin doctors. They throw enough money at the problem until truth drowns in a sea of manufactured doubt. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But there is always something they miss, some thread that unravels the whole lie, some piece of evidence they forgot to destroy, some witness they could not buy. I have been working in this hospital for 30 years. I have seen it happen more times than I can count. The truth has a way of surfacing. Claire thought about the credit card statement she had photographed on the morning of the fall, the mysterious condo address, the transfers from her trust fund, the pattern of deception stretching back years. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, found something important on the witness who gave the statement against you. His name is Thomas Fletcher. He was fired from the courthouse 6 months ago for stealing office supplies and misusing petty cash. He has a bankruptcy filing from last year and 3 months of overdue rent payments. Someone paid off all his debts last week. Cash deposits that cannot be traced directly to Derek. But the timing is extremely suspicious. Claire processed this information, her mind working through the implications. Derek bought a witness. That is what it looks like. Marcus paused, and she could hear him typing in the background. But proving it requires connecting the money to Derek's accounts directly. His lawyers have everything locked down tight. Multiple shell companies, offshore accounts, the whole arsenal of financial obfuscation. Claire remembered the condo address from the credit card statement, the thread Nurse Crawford had mentioned. I have something that might help. On the morning of the fall, I found a statement for an account I did not recognize. The billing address is a place called Luxury Tower Condominiums, Unit 2317. I will check it out. Marcus's voice carried a new energy, the enthusiasm of a hunter picking up a fresh trail. If Derek is paying for property in Vanessa's name with hidden accounts, that is evidence of financial concealment. That is the thread. After the call ended, Claire turned on the television mounted on the wall across from her bed. A local news segment was running a story about the courthouse incident. The anchor's tone was sympathetic toward Derek, framing him as a successful businessman caught in a difficult domestic situation with an unstable spouse. Then the segment cut to a man on the street interview. A young woman spoke directly into the camera, her expression thoughtful. I do not know who is telling the truth, but I saw the video online. The one that is going around, Chitong. She looked pretty pregnant to be attacking anyone. Like, really pregnant. How is she supposed to be the aggressor here? A second voice interrupted, someone off camera with a harsh, dismissive laugh. Pregnant women can be crazy. Hormones make them do all kinds of things. My cousin went nuts when she was pregnant. Threw a plate at her husband's head. Claire turned off the television with a sharp jab at the remote. The room felt smaller. The walls pressed inward. She placed her hand on her belly and felt her daughter kick against her palm, strong and insistent. What kind of world was she bringing this child into? A world where victims were transformed into villains by whoever had the most money, where truth could be purchased and discarded, where a woman could be pushed downstairs and then blamed for falling. The door opened. Dr. Matthews entered with his tablet and an expression that made Claire's stomach clench. Your stress levels are affecting the baby. He showed her the readings from the monitor, the graph lines spiking in patterns she could not interpret but knew were bad. Your blood pressure has been elevated for 3 days straight. Your cortisol levels are through the roof. If this does not stabilize soon, we may need to consider early delivery to protect both of you. Claire closed her eyes. Early delivery. Her daughter was not ready. She needed more time to develop, more time to grow strong, more time before facing the world. What can I do? Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rest, Dr. Matthews said firmly. Stay away from news and social media. Focus entirely on staying calm for your child. I know that seems impossible given everything you are facing, but your daughter needs you to try. Staying calm while her husband destroyed her reputation and stole her future. Staying calm while strangers on the internet called her crazy. Staying calm while everything she had built crumbled around her. Claire nodded because she did not have another choice. But beneath her compliance, something else was building. Something harder than fear. Something sharper than despair. Determination. Marcus arrived the next morning with coffee and a folder of documents. His expression carried the controlled excitement of a hunter who had finally picked up a clear trail after days of searching. The condo is real. He spread photographs across Claire's hospital bed, images of a sleek, high-rise building and luxurious interior shots. Luxury tower condominiums, Unit 2317. 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city skyline. Lease signed 8 months ago in Vanessa Cole's name. Claire studied the photographs. The furniture matched the charges on the mysterious credit card statement. The design aesthetic matched the elite interior design services payment. But here's where it gets interesting. Marcus pulled out bank statements covered in highlighted sections. All the payments for the condo come from an LLC called Harrison Property Investments. Derek created a shell company specifically to hide his payments to Vanessa. And that same LLC has been receiving monthly transfers from your joint accounts. Money you thought was going to household expenses, to the mortgage, to savings. It was actually funding his mistress's luxury lifestyle. The betrayal was so complete, so methodical, so thoroughly planned that Claire could only stare at the evidence in silence. Years of deception, years of theft, years of lies told with a smile and a kiss on the forehead. There is more. Marcus continued, pulling out additional documents. 3 courthouse employees have come forward as witnesses without any prompting. They all confirm you never said a word to Vanessa before the attack. They saw her follow you across the lobby. They saw her deliberately position herself behind you at the top of the stairs. They saw her wait until you were in the most vulnerable position before she pushed. Claire felt a flicker of hope, dangerous hope, hope that had been crushed before and might be crushed again. But hope nonetheless. The district attorney is taking this seriously. Marcus met her eyes, his gaze steady and reassuring. Detective Samuel Brooks has opened an official criminal investigation into the assault. Charges against Vanessa are not just possible, they are likely criminal charges. Claire repeated the words like they belonged to a foreign language. She was only beginning to understand. She is actually going to be held accountable for what she did. It looks that way. Claire allowed herself to smile. The first genuine smile in days. The first moment of lightness in weeks. That smile lasted until evening. Marcus was reviewing case notes in the corner of the room when his phone rang. He listened for several minutes, his face growing progressively paler. When he hung up, he turned to Claire with an expression that made her heart drop. What happened? Claire pushed herself upright despite the soreness still lingering in her body. Derek released a video. Marcus's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. Security footage that appears to show you grabbing Vanessa's arm before she pushed you. He claims it proves you initiated the physical confrontation and that Vanessa acted in self-defense. That is impossible. Claire's heart raced, her blood pressure spiking on the monitor beside her bed. I never touched her. I never got close enough to touch her. Marcus showed her his phone. The video was grainy, clearly edited and compiled from multiple camera angles, but it showed a figure in a navy dress reaching toward a woman in red. The movement looked aggressive, hostile, threatening. This is fake. Claire studied the footage with desperate intensity, looking for the flaw she knew had to be there. This is not what happened. This is manipulated. I know, but it is already circulating online. News outlets are picking it up as evidence that supports Derek's version of events. Social media is exploding with hot takes and opinions. The narrative is shifting again. Claire watched the video 3 more times, her eyes scanning every detail. Something nagged at her. Something was wrong beyond the obvious manipulation. Then she saw it. The thread. Marcus, look at my ring. She pointed at the screen, her finger trembling with excitement. In this video, my wedding ring is on my right hand. Marcus zoomed in on the image, squinting at the small detail. I always wore it on my left hand. Claire continued, her voice growing stronger. Always, without exception. I am left-handed. Wearing a ring on my right hand felt wrong, uncomfortable, distracting. I never once wore it on my right hand during our entire marriage. This footage has been manipulated. They flipped the image horizontally and spliced it from different camera angles to create a completely false sequence of events. Marcus stared at her with something approaching admiration. You just found the thread that unravels everything. Claire looked at her brother with steady determination, her fear transforming into something harder and more useful. Now pull it. The thread Claire found was not enough to stop the avalanche Derek had set in motion. His machinery of deception was too powerful, too well-funded, too thoroughly prepared. 3 days after the video release, Claire sat in her hospital bed facing 3 consecutive disasters that would have broken most people. The first blow came at 9 in the morning, a call from her bank, the same institution her family had trusted for 3 generations. Mrs. Harrison, your accounts have been frozen pending a fraud investigation. The voice on the other end was professionally apologetic. Your husband filed a formal complaint alleging unauthorized transfers and financial misconduct. Until the investigation is complete, you will not have access to any funds in your accounts. Claire stared at her phone after the call ended. She had no access to her own money. The trust fund her grandmother had left her, the savings she had accumulated before marriage, the checking account she used for daily expenses. All of it locked away because Derek had decided to accuse her of the very crime he had committed. The second blow came at noon. Marcus showed her his tablet with a grim expression that told her the news before she read a word. A major national news network picked up Derek's story. The headline read, "Troubled Pregnant Woman's Harassment Campaign Against Husband's Employee Continues." The article was 3,000 words long. It quoted anonymous sources describing Claire's mental health history in vivid detail, her supposed dependence on medication that did not exist, her volatile episodes that had never happened, her manipulative behavior that was entirely fabricated. Claire read 3 paragraphs before she had to stop. The lies were so specific, so detailed, so thoroughly documented with false evidence that anyone reading them would believe every word was true. My name is destroyed, she whispered, the words scraping against her throat. Everything I have ever been, everything I have ever done, none of it matters now. I am just the crazy pregnant woman who attacked her husband's innocent girlfriend. Names can be rebuilt, Marcus replied. But even as he said the words, Claire could see the doubt flickering in his eyes. Truth has a way of surfacing, eventually, but eventually might be too late. Derek had resources she could not match, connections she could not compete with. He had been planning this for months, maybe years, while Claire had been focused on surviving each day of her marriage. The third blow came at 4 in the afternoon. Claire felt a sharp cramp in her abdomen. Then another. Then a third, stronger than the first 2 combined. The fetal monitor began beeping rapidly. Its steady rhythm transformed into an urgent alarm. Dr. Matthews rushed into the room with 2 nurses close behind him. His examination was quick and his diagnosis was immediate. You are having contractions, stress-induced. The baby is not ready for delivery. We need to stop this now. For the next 3 hours, Claire lay perfectly still while medication dripped into her IV line and doctors worked to calm her body's premature response to trauma. Every minute felt like an hour. Every contraction felt like a threat. Every beep of the monitor felt like a countdown to disaster. When the crisis finally passed, when the contractions stopped and her daughter's heartbeat stabilized, Matthew sat beside her bed with an expression that held no room for negotiation. "You cannot attend your custody hearing tomorrow," he said, his voice gentle but absolute. "Your body cannot handle that level of stress right now. If you push yourself, if you try to do too much, you risk delivering a premature baby. Your daughter could face serious health complications. You could face serious health complications." Claire felt tears sliding down her temples into her hair, soaking the hospital pillow. Her custody hearing, the most important legal proceeding of her life. The hearing that would determine whether she could protect her daughter from the man who had already tried to destroy them both. And she would not be there to speak for herself. Derek would stand before the judge with his expensive lawyers and his fabricated evidence. He would tell his version of events without Claire present to challenge him. He would claim full custody of a child he had never wanted, never cared about, never loved, because winning was more important to him than fatherhood. Claire had reached the bottom. There was no lower place to fall. She lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling tiles, counting the small holes in each square. Her baby was at risk. Her money was frozen. Her reputation was destroyed. Her husband had systematically dismantled every support structure in her life. She whispered to her belly, her hand pressed against the curve where her daughter waited. "I am so sorry. I tried so hard. I thought I could protect you. I thought I could fight him and win." Then her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Claire almost ignored it, almost let it go to voicemail with the dozens of other calls from reporters and strangers who wanted to tell her what they thought of her choices, her marriage, her character. But something made her answer, some instinct she could not name. A woman's voice spoke, hesitant, frightened, nothing like the confident, mocking tone Claire had heard at the courthouse. "Mrs. Harrison, this is Vanessa Cole. We need to talk." Vanessa arrived at the hospital 2 hours later. Security almost stopped her at the door, recognizing her face from the news coverage. But Claire had given up explicit instructions to let her through. When Vanessa entered the room, Claire barely recognized her. The woman who had attacked her at the courthouse, who had stood at the top of those marble steps with satisfaction gleaming in her eyes, had been polished and confident and wrapped in designer clothes and self-righteousness. This woman looked broken. Vanessa's red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail that looked like it had not been brushed in days. Her face was bare of makeup, revealing dark circles under her eyes and lines of exhaustion around her mouth. She wore faded jeans and a simple gray sweater instead of the glamorous outfits Claire had seen in photographs and surveillance footage. She stood just inside the doorway, her posture uncertain, her hands twisting together in front of her. She looked like someone who had spent the past week discovering that everything she believed was a lie. "Why are you here?" Claire's voice was flat. She had no energy left for rage, for accusations, for the satisfaction of confronting her attacker. She felt only a hollow exhaustion. Vanessa took a tentative step forward. "Because Derek is going to destroy me too." She paused, her voice catching on the words. "And because I finally understand that he lied to me about everything, about you, about himself, about what we were building together." Claire said nothing. She waited. Vanessa sat in the chair beside the bed, moving slowly as if expecting to be thrown out at any moment. Her hands trembled in her lap. "He told me you were abusive." She began, her voice barely above a whisper. "He told me you controlled every aspect of his life, that you tracked his phone, monitored his emails, screamed at him when he came home late from work. He told me you threatened to take everything from him in the divorce and leave him with nothing. He said you were dangerous, that he was genuinely afraid of you." Claire laughed. The sound was hollow and bitty, scraping against her throat. "And you believed him?" Vanessa nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. "I wanted to believe him. He was charming and attentive, and he made me feel special. Like I was the only person in the world who understood him. Like I was saving him from a nightmare. When you love someone, when you think you love someone, you want their story to be true. You need their story to be true." Claire understood that sentiment better than she wanted to admit. She had believed Derek's stories too, once. Had believed his explanations and excuses and promises. Had believed him even when the evidence of his cruelty was right in front of her face. Vanessa continued, her words coming faster now. The push at the courthouse. That was his idea. He told me to scare you, make you nervous before the hearing. He said if you got upset and made a scene in front of witnesses, it would help his custody case. He said you would probably cry or yell, and that would prove you were unstable. She met Claire's eyes for the first time since entering the room. I never meant for you to fall. I never meant to hurt your baby. I was just supposed to confront you, get in your face, make you react. But then you looked at me, and all the anger I had been building for months, all the hatred he had fed me, it just exploded. I did not think. I just pushed. You could have killed my daughter, Claire said quietly, the words carrying the weight of months of fear and pain. I know. Tears streamed down Vanessa's face, her composure finally crumbling completely. I know, Alec, and I will never forgive myself for that. I wake up every night seeing you fall. I dream about it. I cannot close my eyes without seeing your face. Silence filled the room. The monitor beeped steadily, marking time. Why are you here now? Claire asked finally. Why come to me after everything? Because Derek is finished with me. Vanessa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. As soon as the situation got too public, too complicated, too dangerous for his image, he cut me off completely. Stopped paying for the condo, stopped returning my calls, told his lawyer to prepare to blame everything on me if criminal charges are filed. He called me yesterday and said I was a liability that needed to be managed. Claire felt no sympathy. She waited for whatever came next. I have proof. Vanessa pulled out her phone with trembling hands. Text messages where he tells me exactly what to say to you at the courthouse. Voice recordings of him coaching me on how to testify. Bank transfers connecting him to the fake witness who gave that statement against you. Emails where he discusses how to manipulate the media coverage. Claire stared at the phone. This could destroy him. I know. Vanessa's voice broke on the words. But he destroyed me first. He used me to hurt you. Manipulated me into becoming a weapon against an innocent woman. And now he is going to throw me away like I meant nothing. Like I was just a tool. Claire considered her options carefully. She could take this evidence and bury Vanessa alongside Derek. Make them both pay for what they had done to her. Watch them both destroyed by the same truth. Or she could do something different. Something harder. You pushed me, Claire said slowly, each word deliberate and clear. You could have killed my child. I will never forgive you for that moment. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. That terror, that pain, that image of my daughter dying inside me because of your hands. I will carry that for the rest of my life. Vanessa nodded, tears continuing to fall. I understand. But Claire paused, gathering her strength. If you help me stop him from doing this to anyone else, from destroying other women the way he tried to destroy both of us, I will tell the district attorney that you cooperated. I will recommend reduced charges. Vanessa looked up, her expression stunned. Why would you do that? After everything I did to you? After what I almost cost you? Claire placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move beneath her palm. Because my daughter is going to ask me someday what kind of person her mother was. And I want to tell her that I chose justice over vengeance. That I was strong enough to accept help from someone who hurt me because stopping a monster mattered more than holding a grudge. That I built something better out of the worst moment of my life. For the first time in their conversation, something shifted in Vanessa's expression. Something that looked almost like respect, almost like hope. What do you need me to do? Claire reached for her phone. First, I need to call my brother. Then we need to prepare your testimony for tomorrow's hearing. The emergency court session convened at 2 in the afternoon. Judge Patricia Winters presided from her elevated bench, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. Her expression revealed nothing, but her eyes missed nothing. Claire appeared via video conference from her hospital bed. Dr. Matthews had approved the arrangement on the strict condition that her stress levels be monitored throughout and that the feed would be cut immediately if her vital signs became dangerous. On the screen, she could see the courtroom in crisp detail. Derek sat at the defendant's table with his attorney Richard Sullivan, a man whose reputation for ruthless divorce litigation preceded him into every room he entered. Derek wore a charcoal suit and an expression of wounded dignity, the wronged husband forced to defend himself against an unstable wife. Vanessa Cole sat on a separate bench near the back of the courtroom, guarded by a bailiff. She wore a simple navy dress and no jewelry, her appearance deliberately modest. Marcus stood at the plaintiff's table, organizing evidence folders with methodical precision. His posture radiated confidence. Judge Winters spoke first. We are here today to address emergency motions in the matter of Harrison versus Harrison. I understand there is substantial new evidence to present. Marcus approached the bench. Your Honor, I have security footage, witness testimony, and documentary evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that my client was the victim of a coordinated attack designed to undermine her custody claim and destroy her reputation. Derek's attorney rose immediately, his voice smooth and practiced. Objection, Your Honor. This so-called evidence is inadmissible hearsay compiled by the plaintiff's family. Mr. Harrison is hardly an objective source. Judge Winters held up her hand. I will determine admissibility after reviewing the evidence. You will have your opportunity to respond. Continue. Mr. Harrison? Marcus connected his laptop to the courtroom display. The first piece of evidence is the complete security footage from the courthouse incident, obtained directly from the courthouse security system and verified by the building's security director. The video played on the large screen. Unlike the edited clip Derek had released, this version showed the full sequence of events without manipulation. Claire walking calmly toward the elevators, her hand on her belly. Vanessa following her with visible aggression, her stride quickening, the verbal confrontation at the top of the stairs. And then, unmistakably, Vanessa extending both hands and shoving Claire backward with deliberate force. Several people in the gallery gasped. Judge Winters watched without expression, but her pen moved rapidly across her notepad. Marcus continued, Our digital forensics expert has confirmed that the video released by Mr. Harrison was digitally manipulated. The footage was horizontally flipped and spliced from multiple camera angles to create the false impression that my client initiated physical contact. He displayed a comparison image on the screen. Note that in the manipulated video, Mrs. Harrison's wedding ring appears on her right hand. However, Mrs. Harrison has worn her ring exclusively on her left hand for the entirety of her marriage, as confirmed by over 200 photographs from their relationship and the testimony of multiple friends and family members. This is not an editing error. This is deliberate falsification of evidence. Derek shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his composure cracking for the first time. Additionally, Marcus pulled up bank records on the screen. We have evidence that Mr. Harrison paid Thomas Fletcher, a former courthouse employee with significant debts, to provide false testimony against Mrs. Harrison. Cash deposits totaling $15,000 were made to Mr. Fletcher's account 3 days after the incident, timed precisely with the filing of his witness statement. Judge Winters studied the documents, her expression hardening. Is there a direct connection between these payments and Mr. Harrison? Marcus turned toward Vanessa. I would like to call a witness who can provide that connection. Vanessa walked slowly to the witness audience, her posture straight but her hands trembling. She had dressed simply for court, her demeanor subdued, every trace of the confident woman who had attacked Claire erased by weeks of guilt and fear. She took the oath with a steady voice. Miss Cole, Marcus began, approaching the witness stand. What is your relationship to Derek Harrison? We were in a romantic relationship for approximately 14 months. Vanessa met Derek's eyes as she spoke, and he looked away first. He told me his marriage was over, that his wife was abusive and dangerous, that he needed my support to escape a nightmare. Derek's attorney rose. Objection. This testimony is self-serving from an individual facing criminal charges. She has every incentive to lie. Your Honor, Marcus countered. Ms. Cole is providing testimony against her own interests. She is confirming her involvement in a conspiracy that could result in additional criminal charges against her. Her cooperation with this court will be noted by the district attorney, but her testimony could also be used to strengthen the case against her. Judge Winters nodded. I will allow it. The witness may continue. Vanessa described the weeks leading up to the courthouse attack. Derek's careful manipulation, his instructions to confront Claire, his assurances that everything would be fine, that Claire would react badly and prove herself unstable, his cold dismissal once the situation became too public to control. Then Marcus asked the critical question. Miss Cole, do you have evidence directly linking Mr. Harrison to the witness tampering? Vanessa unlocked her phone and handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the court clerk. I have text messages and voice recordings where Derek discusses the payment to Thomas Fletcher in explicit detail. He told me it was necessary to protect both of us. He said Fletcher was desperate enough to say anything for the right price. The courtroom fell absolutely silent as the messages were displayed on the screen. Derek's words, typed carelessly in moments he never expected would become public, confirmed everything Marcus had alleged. Make sure Fletcher knows exactly what to say. The payment will be in cash. Nothing traceable. Tell him the rest comes after he testifies. Derek stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is fabricated. She is lying to save herself. You cannot believe anything this woman says. Judge Winter spoke sharply. Mr. Harrison, you will remain seated and silent. Another outburst will result in contempt charges. But Derek was unraveling. Months of careful manipulation crumbling around him. His face flushed red. His hands shook. The mask of the charming businessman slipped away, revealing the cruel, desperate man beneath. Claire watched through the video feed. She had imagined this moment countless times during sleepless nights in the hospital, dreamed of seeing Derek exposed for who he really was, fantasized about watching his empire of lies collapse. Now that it was happening, she felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not even relief, just exhaustion. And beneath that, a quiet peace, Your Honor. Marcus approached the bench. I move for immediate reinstatement of the protective order, emergency custody grant to my client, and criminal referral to the district attorney for fraud, witness tampering, and conspiracy to commit assault. Judge Winters reviewed her notes for a long moment. The courtroom held its collective breath. Motion granted on all counts. Her voice was firm and final. Mr. Harrison, you are ordered to have no contact whatsoever with your wife. Temporary full custody of the unborn child is granted to Mrs. Harrison pending the conclusion of criminal proceedings. She looked at Derek with undisguised contempt. You have treated this court with remarkable disrespect. Mr. Harrison, you have manipulated witnesses, falsified evidence, and attempted to destroy the mother of your child through a coordinated campaign of lies. I suggest you find better counsel for your upcoming criminal trial. Claire watched her husband being led from the courtroom by bailiffs. His face was blank, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap, his shoulders slumped, his confidence evaporated. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered to her daughter, "We won, sweetheart. We actually won." 3 weeks later, Claire Harrison stood in the kitchen of a small rented apartment on the quiet side of town. Morning light streamed through windows that looked out on a modest garden where early spring flowers were beginning to push through the soil. The kitchen was simple but clean, with white cabinets and butcher block countertops. Nothing like the cold perfection of the house she had shared with Derek. It was perfect. Marcus helped her arrange a mobile above the crib in the nursery. Soft fabric, stars in purple and silver dangled at different heights, catching the light from the window. The room was small, maybe half the size of the guest bathroom in her old house, but it was filled with light and love and hope. You sure you do not want the bigger place? Marcus adjusted the mobile's height for the third time. I found 3 listings with better square footage in safer neighborhoods. I could help with the down payment. Claire shook her head, smiling at her brother's protective instincts. This is enough, more than enough. I want her to grow up knowing that happiness does not require excess, that safety matters more than luxury, that a home is about the people in it, not the square footage. She ran her hand along the crib's smooth wooden rail. In 2 weeks, her daughter would sleep here, would open her eyes for the first time in a room chosen by her mother, would begin her life surrounded by love instead of fear, in a home built on truth instead of lies. The television in the living room played softly. The volume turned low. A news anchor reported on ongoing developments in the Harrison case. Real estate developer Derek Harrison was formally indicted today on multiple charges including fraud, conspiracy, and witness tampering. His business partners have released a statement distancing themselves from Harrison's personal legal troubles. Several major clients have already terminated their contracts. Claire muted the television. She had stopped following the news coverage days ago. Derek's downfall no longer interested her. His conviction would not heal her wounds. His imprisonment would not erase her scars. What mattered now was moving forward. Marcus sat beside her on the small couch, the springs creaking slightly under his weight. You know, the prosecutor called again this morning. They want to make sure you are available for testimony when the criminal trial starts. I will be there. Claire answered without hesitation. But after that, I am done with him. Done thinking about him. Done letting him occupy space in my mind. Done giving him any power over my life. Marcus nodded, accepting her decision. And Vanessa, have you heard anything about her situation? Claire hesitated. Vanessa Cole had accepted a plea deal 2 weeks ago. Assault charges reduced to misdemeanor battery in exchange for her testimony against Derek. She was serving community service and attending mandatory counseling. Her lawyer sent a letter. Claire finally said, Vanessa wanted me to know she is getting help. Working on understanding how she ended up in Derek's orbit, how she became someone capable of hurting another woman so badly. She does not expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she is trying. What do you think about that? Claire considered the question carefully. I think people are complicated. She made terrible choices, choices that almost cost my daughter her life. But she was also manipulated by someone who made an art form out of manipulation. Someone who spent years perfecting the craft of turning people into weapons. She paused, watching the light shift across the nursery walls. I hope she finds peace, but I hope she finds it far away from me. Marcus accepted this answer. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Your accountant called with the final numbers. The forensic recovery team traced most of the missing trust fund transfers through Derek's network of shell companies. They have recovered about 60%. The rest is tied up in legal proceedings that could take years to resolve. Claire studied the numbers. 60%, less than half of what her grandmother had left her, but enough for a modest life, enough to raise her daughter without financial panic, enough for a fresh start. It is plenty. She closed the folder. My grandmother always said money should be a tool, not a master. I forgot that lesson somewhere along the way. I let Derek convince me that his lifestyle was necessary, that his success was my security, that I needed him to survive. And now, Claire looked around her small apartment, the secondhand furniture, the simple decorations, the nursery filled with gifts from friends rather than designer boutiques. Now I know security comes from knowing who I am, from trusting myself, from building a life that does not depend on anyone else's approval or validation or permission. The baby kicked against her palm, a strong movement, an impatient announcement that she was ready to meet the world. Claire smiled. Soon, sweetheart. Very soon, sir. Marcus stood and pulled on his jacket. I have to get back to the office. The Henderson case is going to trial next week, but I will check on you tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until you tell me to stop. Claire walked him to the door. Before he left, she hugged him tightly, holding on longer than usual. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder, for everything, for showing up when I needed you, for believing me when no one else did, for being the person who reminded me that I was worth fighting for. Marcus held her for a moment. That is what family does. After he left, Claire returned to the nursery. She sat in the rocking chair beside the crib and looked out the window at the small garden below. Flowers were beginning to bloom. Crocuses and daffodils pushing through soil that had been frozen all winter. New growth emerging from ground that had seemed dead. She thought about the woman she had been 3 weeks ago, broken on a courthouse floor, terrified for her child, watching her husband comfort the woman who had attacked her, believing in that moment of absolute despair that she had lost everything. That woman had believed she was powerless, had spent years believing that love meant shrinking herself to fit someone else's expectations, had accepted cruelty because she thought she deserved it, had made excuses for abuse because the alternative, admitting the truth, felt too terrifying to face. This woman was different. This woman had testified against her abuser in open court, had accepted help from an unlikely source when pride would have been easier, had chosen justice over vengeance when vengeance would have been sweeter, had built a new life from the wreckage of the old. Claire placed her hand on her belly and spoke aloud, her voice steady and sure. You are going to grow up strong, little one. You are going to know that being kind is not the same as being weak, that trusting people is not the same as being naive, that asking for help is not the same as failing, that walking away from someone who hurts you is not giving up. It is choosing yourself. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Almost in response, Claire laughed softly, the sound surprising her with its lightness. And you are going to know that your mother faced the worst day of her life and survived, that she was pushed downstairs and got back up, that she was betrayed by everyone she trusted and learned to trust herself, that she was told she was crazy and unstable and dangerous, and she proved them all wrong. She leaned back in the rocking chair, watching the afternoon light shift across the nursery walls. The shadows lengthened. The room grew golden. The scars would remain. She knew that. The nightmares would fade slowly. The healing would take years. She would flinch at unexpected sounds. She would struggle to trust. She would carry the weight of what happened for the rest of her life. But she was still here. Her daughter was still here. And whatever came next, they would face it together. Claire Harrison closed her eyes and allowed herself, for the first time in 5 years, to feel completely at peace, not happy, exactly, not yet, but safe and hopeful and ready. The sun continued its slow descent outside her window. Somewhere in the garden, a bird began to sing, and in the small nursery of a modest apartment, a mother rocked gently in her chair and dreamed of tomorrow.